Today, I am joined by founder of the Dad Edge Alliance Mastermind. He's a podcaster, he is an event host, he is an author. Heck, even his kids are authors. Today, I'm joined by Mr. Larry Hagner. How you doing?
What is going on, my friends? Good to see you again, Mark. Good to
You
see
as
you, man.
you as well. You as well. Every time we chat, I walk away with a ton of value. So I appreciate you coming on the show so you can share that value with the rest of the community over here.
Oh, thank you, man. Back at you. Last time I saw you was pre-COVID. We actually got together at an event, and now here we are. We're like fourth month of lockdown since.
Yeah, it's been a whirlwind of the last few months. And one of the reasons I want to bring you on this show is because you've built what I would consider a very, very solid, successful, stable business model leveraging the concept of masterminds. And quite frankly, going back 10, 15, 20 years ago, masterminds were not really a thing. And they've started to catch on. So I'd like to hear from you, Larry. What is a mastermind and what is the value that people get from joining a mastermind program?
Yeah, I think masterminds weren't as well known as they are now because of the technology we have, the social media that we have, a lot of platforms that we have. Like they just weren't as well known. But if you actually go back, um, to our forefathers, Benjamin Franklin, Theodore Roosevelt, Abraham Lincoln, uh, Dave Ramsey. I mean, I know there's a wide gap there, right? But like these. There have been masterminds for years, for over a century. And one thing that can be boiled down, that can really be we can focus on here is that men who are operating at a high level are usually surrounded by other men who are operating at a high level. I heard a quote, actually it was a couple of weeks ago, that if you hang out with chickens, you will peck at the ground and eat what's on the ground. But if you hang with eagles, you'll soar to new heights and you'll hunt very, very differently, right? And being in a mastermind is no different. The whole point of a mastermind, to answer your question, is to elevate your group and to elevate your circle of friends. And the cool thing about a mastermind is usually there is a variety of different people in a mastermind from several different walks of life, several different experiences. Most of the time, they're people who are operating at a fairly decent high level, or they want to be, right? They're hungry to operate at a high level. We see masterminds a lot in business, so business masterminds. And the funny thing about it is, if any of your listeners are spiritual people and they're familiar with what a Bible study is, well, that's a spiritual mastermind, because a spiritual mastermind is it's a collected group of people who all share the exact same vision and purpose, and they all have a very common foundation. And in a Bible study, that common foundation is the Bible. It's the Word of God. It's living your life within. It's living a godly life, and the people that are doing the Bible study with you are going to hold you accountable to operating within that level. And it's the same thing. If you're hanging out with those people, you're doing life with those people, chances are you're going to operate within those realms. But that's pretty much what a mastermind is.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head there with a lot of different points, Larry, because you are the average of the five people you spend the most time with. Or if you're spending your life around chickens, you're going to be pecking at the ground, which I don't think anybody wants to be doing. And clearly when you're trying to build a business and you're kind of in this, for the people that are in their middle age of life, like it can feel very solo. You can also feel like you're on your own a lot of times. People can't empathize or don't understand you. So I can definitely see that value there. So I want to talk a little bit about what separates a great mastermind from an average or crappy mastermind, because quite frankly, I'm starting to see a lot of them pop up. And as someone who has well over 300 members in his mastermind going on strong and growing, what do you think separates the great from the average or mediocre?
That's a really good question. So I think you have to ensure that you have the right people who are coming to do the mastermind. Number one. So a lot of people would probably think it's a lot of work, and it is, but it's a lot of joyous work to speak personally to every single man who wants to come and do life with us. I've had a business coach for a long time, and he's like, "Man, you got to scale that part. You can't be doing all the interviews." And I'm like,
Mm.
"Yeah, but I do." And and I have a hard time letting that go. And I think a lot of guys who jump in and get on a Zoom call, an interview before we decide that we're going to move forward with the mastermind, they're like, "Wow, I didn't expect to see you. I thought I'd see like one of your coaches." And I'm like, "No, I'm the one who does these. I enjoy doing these. And I feel that it's my responsibility that, we've got 405 members now, and it's my responsibility to make sure that we are bringing in the men that are humble, that are hungry, and have emotional intelligence. Those are my 3 requirements. And let me share with you the reason why. If you're allowing men in who are hungry, you're weeding out the men who are complacent, because complacency is contagious. There's a lot of men, unfortunately, there's a lot of people out there that are very comfortable just being comfortable, and they're not hungry to level up, or they've got excuses, or they just, it's just not for them. And I feel that that's really contagious. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that at all. It's just, that's not a spot where you're going to thrive in a mastermind. You're not going to inspire people either when you're doing that. The other thing too is humility. That's a big one. The humility aspect is like the absence of ego. And that's another thing that there's a lot of men out there who have huge egos, like if they hear somebody talk about like, oh, my wife and I aren't communicating, and their advice is, well, grow a set of balls or man up or whatever. That doesn't help anybody. That's their ego talking. That's basically that man stating, hey, I don't have any advice for you. That's my advice. That's like going to the doctor and he tells you, hey, you need to go get healthy. Well, what does that even mean? It's like, oh, cholesterol, diet, exercise. No, just go get healthy. That doesn't help anybody. So humility. And then emotional intelligence is another one that's really, really big, because there's a lot of men in a mastermind or any mastermind. They're going to share some authentic things, some vulnerable things. So you've got to make sure that you have men in your group that can handle that. They can handle the fact that like, wow, this guy is going through this, or he's going through that, or I didn't expect to hear that. And you've got to have men who have high emotional intelligence that can handle that stuff. So I think that's one aspect, is making sure that you have the right men in there. The other thing that I'll share too is you've got to have a structure and an agenda and accountability. And again, we have all those things. So, when we get on these call teams, we now have 25 different call teams that we do per week. We have over 40 coaches that help us lead these call teams, and we don't wing anything, nothing. Like, we don't get on a call and be like, so what are we all talking about? Well,
Got a plan.
Got a plan. So every month we have a focus, we have an agenda. So like, for instance, in July and August, we're doing an 8-week series on marriage and communication. Every single week, these men will learn a skill and a tactic that they can actually go execute and go do that week. And they've got a tribe to hold them accountable. And speaking of accountability can kind of, it can be like flim flam, it can kind of go in and out depending on who's in your group. So we have a point man on every single call team. He's called the accountability commander. He also helps the team captain run the call teams, but he is in charge of accountability. So the one thing that I'll share with you though, too, is that there are 2 types of men who come and do our mastermind. There's the man who wants accountability and welcomes it and is like, hey, I need to be held accountable. And then there's the other man. It's like, please, for the love of God, don't hold me accountable to do anything. I just want to have better conversations, and I want to be surrounded by better men, and I want to learn a few things, but please don't breathe down my neck, forcing me to do stuff. And that's fine. We welcome that. So we tell men, if you want to be held accountable, raise your hand. We've got a point man on every team to do that. And if you don't, that's okay. That's all right.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I mean, you broke down a ton of really valuable stuff there. And I think for someone that's just starting or just trying to create their own mastermind, it can be a little overwhelming. 400 people, all these different call nights, you got a plan, you got coaches. But at the end of the day, I'm with you there. If you're going to have a successful mastermind, you have to have the right people in there, right? Because iron sharpens iron and so on and so forth. So if we go back to the beginning, Larry, to the beginning of the Dad Edge Alliance and the foundation of creating that mastermind, how did you start by getting the right people in? What was your method of getting the right people into your community?
That's a really good question. So I was a part of a mastermind in 2015. I was with ISI, which is Iron Sharpens Iron, with Aaron Walker, just really dear friend of mine, incredible mentor. And I remember being a part of that mastermind because I desperately wanted to point in the right direction with, what do I do at Dad Edge? What do I do at Good Dad Project? I have no idea what to do, how to make of this. And Aaron and I had a heart to heart because I was getting ready to leave his mastermind. I'm like, look, man, I'm really not getting a whole lot out of it. Like there's no one even in my mastermind group, in my call team, that is a podcaster or an author. Like I'm got one guy who's dealing with government contracts, another guy who's in real estate, like can't relate. And he's like, man, I think you're really missing the boat here on what you could create. And I'm like, what? He's like, well, there really is no mastermind out there for dads and husbands. He's like, I'm mine is more of a Christian businessman, husband, father, that kind of thing, but that's not my sole 100% focus. He's like, why don't you go create what we've created here, but do it for fathers? And I was like, oh, that's a really good point. Yeah, I guess I could do that, because I did enjoy it, and I got a lot out of it. So what I did is I reached out to 10 men. I take that back. I reached out to 21 men here locally that lived around me here in St. Louis. And I said, hey, I'm getting ready to do this 6-week mastermind. We're all going to meet at this coffee shop every Saturday. This is what it's going to cost you. It's $200 for the 6 weeks. I just want to try this, and see what you think of it. So men, we did it for 6 weeks. Men had to travel to be there, like 20, 30 minutes or whatever for some people. For some people it was 5 minutes. And that's a key thing, by the way. And the men got a lot out of it. They really enjoyed it. The one thing that was a challenge for men is burning like time to travel, to go somewhere physically, right? So it was after that was completed, I was like, let me see if I can take this virtual. And so I did that. I was like, well, what if I just open this up to 10 men? And I know the 10 men I'm going to ask. And I told them, I was like, look, I'm going to do a 3-month mastermind. It's $100 a month for 3 months. It's a 12-week curriculum. I've developed it. What I'd like to do is have you come and do it, and then just give me some feedback on what you think of it. And I was absolutely amazed at the things these guys got out of this, and how much joy and fulfillment I got by running this. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is awesome. And then after the 3 months, here's the funny part. We had 10 guys who came and did it, and they're like, well, now what? And I'm like, I don't have any. What do you mean now what? And they're like, well, what am I supposed to do now? Like, and I'm like, I don't know. We could do the curriculum again. Like, okay, cool. So I had 8 out of 10 guys who did the thing all over again. And I was like, wow, there's like something here. Like maybe it's not it was the curriculum, but I think it was like that weekly check-in to do something, to take action, to learn something new. And in 2016, I think we had over 200 men that did life with us that particular year. And it was a 3-month program. And I didn't have anything for them past that. And then it was January 1st of 2017, based on the feedback, to like, look, you need to have something ongoing, like something that just constantly evolves. Every month is different. Every week is different. You need to develop that. And so that's what we did. And that's what we've been doing ever since.
Love that. Great story, because you're listening, you're providing value to everyone. Everyone raises up. I'm kind of curious, when you decided to launch this mastermind, did you have another job at that time? What were you doing at that time? And why did you feel like, okay, I need to start moving more? And how did you kind of make that way, navigating from your main job to this mastermind leadership?
Yeah, I did have a job. I was in sales, and I was able to navigate both just fine. And so yeah, it was basically a labor of love. And
So you got
just,
more kind of like fulfillment from running the mastermind, yeah?
yeah, it was like, I joke about this all the time. The cool thing about running a mastermind is not only are you the host and the facilitator, but you're also a student constantly. You're always learning, which is cool. You always learn the needs of men and what it is that they want, desire, their stories. Like, and now it's up to the point where I've talked to so many men, nose to nose, toes to toes. I can almost say things before they say it, it's just because I've gotten to know them so well.
Love that. So you started your mastermind, you're developing, steady, I call it passive income, although certainly not completely passive. How did you grow it? How did you grow from those 10 people to those 200 men? How did you execute on that?
Yeah, that's a good question. I started, it was very organic in the beginning. I wasn't really going out and recruiting people. What we were doing is we had one big group on Facebook called the Dad Edge, Real Dads with Purpose. And based on those posts, like I would see people posting things, and then we would post things too. Like a lot of our guys would be like, "Oh, yeah, I've been doing Dad Edge Mastermind. Like my marriage is doing this, my connection with my kids is doing that, my health is doing this." And suddenly I would get messages from guys like, "Hey, what is this Dad Edge Mastermind? Like I'm seeing people posting about it. Like, do you have a group open or whatever?" And I'd be like, "Well, we don't right now, but I guess we could expand. We could do another one." And then we would have certain guys come in and we're like, well, I guess we could do one at 4 p.m. and well, I guess we can do one at 9. And like it just kept growing organically. And then I started talking about it more on the podcast. And then it was still a lot of sort of hands-on, like as far as like um scheduling these one-on-one sort of interviews for men who want to come do life with us. There was no application process. There was more like, hey, like I'm interested. I want to come aboard. Like, do you have a group available? I'm like, well, no, not right now, but I guess we could make another one. Just things like that. There was a lot of interest, a lot of men who were posting their successes, and it just grew kind of organically. Now I would say it's more of it's a process. It's a systematic approach. There's a lot. It's a lot better with ease of use for the member as well as for our team as well. So it's been the school of hard knocks. We've had to learn a lot of things the hard way.
Yeah, no kidding. That's how any big
Yeah.
business or how any business starts off. It's learning things the hard way. I'm curious, do you think that your mastermind builds your podcast or your podcast builds your mastermind?
That's a really good question. Uh, here's what I'll say about that, and I don't know for sure, but I would say the podcast built the mastermind because if I were to stop podcasting tomorrow, I think the growth of the mastermind would most likely probably die out in about a year.
Wow.
And not that that's the reason we podcast. I mean, the podcasting part of this is probably one of my favorite things because that's truly a front row seat to an education that you can't buy,
Yeah, like
And
I heard
so,
your interview with Jocko Willink, and I was like, wow, this is great. It's fantastic.
good.
Yeah, he's just got a great perspective, and like you said, that for me, podcasting. I mean, we wouldn't be friends. I wouldn't have a place to stay if I was in Missouri if I didn't know you, right? So it's kind of like one of those things where podcasting just opens up all these avenues that people don't really. You can't really understand how it manifests itself until you're actually living it and breathing it. So let's kind of go back again. We've talked about the podcast, building the mastermind. What made you start podcasting in the first place? Because you started podcasting, before it was like a big thing.
So I started podcasting in April of 2015. So we just turned 5 years old this year. And I remember because I had a blog, gooddadproject.com, and I was writing a lot, and I was just like, I don't like writing. I was like, I'm much better. I learned through conversation versus writing. So I was just like, I did it more because I just wanted to have better conversations. I wanted to have better content, versus like self-reflection and writing. So I was just like, you know what? I think I want to give this a try. And yeah, 2015, we launched the podcast.
Love it. And still going strong. Love it, Larry. Really appreciate you sharing your tips there. What about money? So when people start looking at how they can empower their lives, one of the things that I've been really fascinated about is controlling your life, controlling your finances. Because in a world where COVID can hit and you can be put on furlough and lose your job, like things can go really bad really quick in this type of market. Like electronic media and technology and AI and all this stuff is kind of threatening our way of life. Do you feel like podcasting and masterminding is a way to kind of solidify or take control of your financial future? How has that impacted you?
So I'm a pretty frugal person. I was joking with my father-in-law and brother-in-law. I was like, because we were talking about cars. I was like, you'll never find me behind the steering wheel of a brand new car ever. Like we have a 2010 Honda Odyssey. My car is a 2016 Nissan Altima. I don't buy designer clothes. My biggest expense is my grocery bill trying to feed 4 boys. I'm a saver. So I'm just one of those people that, I just save. I finally did go out and buy myself something with money that we've made, which is It's, it was a 2019 Honda 250 CRF dirt bike, so I could go dirt bike riding with my kids. Um, but as far as like stability and income and all that good stuff, we don't need a gazillion dollars, with our family. We need enough to enjoy life and enough to, you know, put food on the table, which is a huge expense for four boys. But what I can tell you is, is it a fantastic revenue generator? Sure. But I don't I don't focus on the money. In fact, I put it away and act like I don't have it, because my compass is very much pointed to delivering value and changing lives and hearing the successes of men in their marriages and men with their health and men with their finances and men, connecting with their teenagers that they've lost connection with, and confidence and better communication and better intimacy with their wives. That's how I measure the success of this. I mean, does it provide an income? Sure, it does. But uh, I feel the minute that I start saying, oh, if we grow from, 405 to 500, it's this, that's the wrong focus.
Hmm.
I will never be focused on that. I never have, I never will. I will never be focused on that. I feel like the minute I start focusing on something like that, I need to go out and do something else because I'm doing it for the wrong reasons. So that's my stance on it. But can it provide an income? Absolutely, sure.
Yeah, because you're not focused on the numbers. You're focused on providing value. And someone's like, "Wow, that's something I've always gotten from you, Larry. Is you're just a very genuine human being." I think when I think about money, I don't think about it so much. I don't want to worry about money, right? I don't want to worry how I'm going to pay my rent or how I'm going to pay for my kids' college education. I just don't want to think about it, quite frankly. I don't want to worry about it. But in my opinion, if you're not continuously educating yourself, continuously finding other ways to create streams of income, you might not worry about money today, but please believe you will be soon. And
Sure.
some people think I'm pessimistic about that, but the reality is that tomorrow's not prompt. Like, if your boss has control of your job, if the government has control of your job, if robots and Elon Musk have control of your job, you're letting go of control. So that's something that's scary to me personally. So we talk about the Dad Edge Alliance, and y'all do a lot of different things. So before we get into the rapid fire, just break down, what are the 5 core competencies that y'all teach in the Dad Edge Alliance?
So yeah, there are 5 dimensions to being a father, husband, man. One is mastering your finances. And by the way, these 5 dimensions, these 5 elements, they're the things that we usually have the least amount of education on. Mastering your personal finances. I mean, look at the U.S. Look at how we manage money. It's disaster, right? And it's truly because we were never taught personal finance growing up. We weren't taught by our parents. It really wasn't taught in school. So it's like, oh, I got this shiny new credit card in the mail. I'm just going to go swipe that over and over, right?
I speak at a
So
local high school. I've spoken there a few times, and not one kid knows what a credit rating is. Not one.
see, that's what I'm talking about. And that's
Harmful.
that's scary stuff. So that's one. Optimizing your physical, mental, emotional, spiritual health. We're big on men taking care of themselves. If you look at men and what we do when we're married and we're fathers, that's the first thing we shelve is our physical, mental, emotional, spiritual health. So that's a big one. Creating a legendary marriage. I would say the majority of guys who come and do life with us in the alliance, that's usually what they're there for. They're like, man, I just right now my marriage is okay, but man, I want an amazing, thriving, incredible marriage. I've been with my wife for 24 years. We've been married for 17 of those 24 years. Every single year we're together, we are more in love with each other. We're more connected. We have more passion. We have better sex. I mean, the whole 9 yards. And we're not taught this stuff. I mean, there's 4 elements to a legendary marriage. There's self-care, there's partnership, friendship, and intimacy and lovers. Those are the things and you have to know how to do those things. And underneath all 4 of those elements is communication. Gotta know how to do that. Most of us have no idea how to do that. And most of us were raised with the example of our parents winging it too. So we're like, oh, wow. So like, not only do I not know how to do this, but I'm going off a blueprint that maybe wasn't the most wonderful thing to see growing up too. So there's that. Then there's connection with your kids, which it's hard. I've got a 4-year-old and a 6-year-old. It's hard to speak 4-year-old and 6-year-old. I feel like I'm talking to 2 drunk people when I'm talking to those two. And then there's my 12 and 14-year-old. So I've got a teen and a tween. So I have like kind of like these toddlers sort of, And then I have teen and tweens, and each one of them desire connection with me very differently. And again, I grew up most of my childhood without a father figure. So I don't want to wing that. I want to learn that. And there are ways to learn how to connect with your kids. And then the final element is being a leader in your business, being a leader in your family, and being a leader within yourself. And most of us are just not taught leadership skills. But that, if you look at anything that we're teaching men in the mastermind, every month, every day, everything that we do will revolve around one or all five of those elements.
Love it. And if you are a father, and that's what your group is designed for. That's what the Dad Edge Alliance is all about. Because like you said, we just don't have a lot of those resources out. Just not out there. If you're getting your relationship advice from TikTok, you're in big trouble. Newsflash. But I'm curious, before we get into the rapid fire here, Larry, if I'm looking for the right mastermind for me, what's something I should be looking for? Because they're starting to pop up everywhere, and I'm sure a lot of them are very scammy, don't provide value. What's something that you can look at to know if it's going to be a good fit for you?
Yeah, I would say, is there a good vetting process? Does the mastermind take anyone? If so, that's probably one I would not recommend. We purposely put three gates in front of a man. There's an application process. You can find that at gooddadproject.com/alliance. If men know that they have to apply, and there's only 5 questions, but there's effort into filling that out, right? And the whole point of the application is there's 2 points. For me to get to know the man before I talk to him, to find out what's on his heart, what's on his mind, what's got him excited about what we do. There's even a question in there about what's your superpower, because I want to know what he's good at. And so that allows me to understand who he is, but that's also effort. So men who aren't going to do anything in our mastermind, chances are they're not going to fill out an application. So it weeds out the guys who are not going to want to do it anyway. Then I schedule a Zoom call with you for 20 minutes, and we get to know each other. And usually it's like 25, 30 minutes, if I'm being really honest. And we get to know each other, and we both decide, is this a good fit? And I have said no to men. I'm like, hey, sorry, we're not a fit, but over here, I'll refer you to these people over here. Probably better fit. And then the third and final gate is, if we both agree, well, now you got to go join. And that's an extra step. And then you got to onboard. So you got to learn how we do this. So I would say, if there's a process in place that makes it maybe a little difficult for you to join, that's probably a good sign that you're in the right spot. But if you're in the click here and join, I don't know. I don't know if it's for you. I think, you might feel like more of a number than a person. But I think that's the main indicator right there.
I really love that piece of advice. If you walk away from this with one thing, it's your mastermind that you join should have a vetting process, because it's the people in that group that make it powerful. And if the first thing you do is bust out your credit card, you're going to be in with dopes. You're going to be in with chickens. You don't want that.
That's right. Give it the Eagles.
That's right. I love it. And of course, this is Larry Hagner with the Dad Edge Alliance. A couple quick questions for you, Larry. Rapid fire. What is one must-have business-related item that costs less than $25?
Ooh, wow. That's Calendly.
I'm with you.
Yeah, automated scheduler, without a doubt.
With you there. What is one subscription that you couldn't do without?
Zoom.
Love it. If you woke up in the morning, there was only one business task you could do for the day, what would you do?
I wouldn't say that this is a business task, but it is. One of my tasks is to reach out to one person that I haven't touched base with for a while every day. So I look for that person, and usually they're within our community. I'll go through I'll go look on our Facebook group, and I see the members. I'm like, man, like this morning, I was going through the list, and I was like, John, I haven't talked to him in a while. I'll save his last name for confidentiality. I was like, I haven't talked to John in a while. I shot him a text. I'm like, hey man, like, how are you doing? I was like, I don't want nothing from you. Just checking in on you. And I'm so glad I did, because like, he was just like, dude, he was like, I'm in a bad spot. Do you have a minute to talk today? I'm like, absolutely. We talked for 30 minutes. So it's touching base with someone that I haven't spoken to in a while.
Love it. Love it. And you've answered this question for me before, but if you could put a message on a billboard that reached millions of people, what would you put on your billboard?
The definition of hell is meeting the man that you could have been when you're on your deathbed.
Words of wisdom. Words of wisdom. I don't know where you get all of your quotes from, but they are just magnificent, Larry. Thank you so much for joining the show.
Oh, thank you for having me.